Neil, thank you very much for that. Time now to take you through the morning's papers, and with us this morning, gaming presenter Julia Hardy and radio host Iain Lee. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Hi,
Thank you very much for coming in. I know, I feel like there's hardly been any time since we last saw, but we're glad to have you nonetheless. Let's start off with the Independent, and Julia, you've had a look at this, and this is really worrying news about IVF treatment.
Yes, OK, so it's this particular technique used in IVF, and I'm going to have to read this so I get it right. Intracytoplasmic sperm injection, which is used, and in America is actually very widely used, with between sort of 90 and 95% of IVF done this way. And what they're basically finding is that especially young boys who are born with this particular technique have a very low sperm count. So obviously, if it's being used quite prolifically to create children, what's going to happen then, obviously, when they grow up, and are we going to have more and more generations then with children who are unable to have children, therefore, you know, enabling more IVF treatment, this kind of thing. It's quite interesting. Obviously, I really do feel for parents who, you know, who can't have children. I personally, in my regard, if I couldn't have children, I'm not that bothered about my genetic code. I'm not really that worried about passing it on, particularly.
Lots of people are, though, and feel that their life isn't complete until they do have children. It's a real
There's so many kids out there who need really good homes. I think there was a thing actually on Sky News this morning about they're trying to sort of change some of the people's sort of misconceptions about adoption, and actually you can do it over 40, and you can do it if you're single, and things like that. And there's so many kids out there that need incredible homes, and if you're willing to go through all of that, and IVF is a really grueling process, sometimes taking 3 cycles to go through, very, very expensive. You're obviously devoted and you really want to be a parent. There's so many kids that could really benefit from that. And yeah, just personally for me, I'm just not that bothered. I mean, I can grow my hair long. That's about the only good genetic thing I can do.
It's a tough one. I can understand why people would do IVF, because I do think that you want to. It's kind of natural to want to feel a specific genetic connection with your children. And adoption is wonderful and fantastic, and you know there is a huge problem with that. But I can see why people would want to undergo this. But the success rates aren't particularly high with IVF.
No, but you do have to be quite determined.
You do have to be, and expect a lot of knockbacks.
Spend quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move on to, let's have a look at the Times. This is your story,
yeah, now this annoys me.
School runs.
School runs, and let's be honest, it's primarily the mums. It's primarily the mums that do it in their 4x4s.
I can just hear Twitter going mad right now.
He's used to it.
Booting it up.
It powers him. He's
like
it's true, though.
It's a fact.
It's tiny mums driving massive 4x4s that they haven't got the power or the strength or the. Why do you need a 4x4 in a city? You're not going farming. You're not pulling sheep out of ditches.
You can fit lots of kids into a 4x4.
You can usually have 1 or 2 in there, though, anyway. Or they get like a people carrier and they have like 2 kids, and you think you could just get a normal.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to drop the friends home.
What is happening?
Anyway, carry on.
In some towns and cities, I'm sensing
I'm not declaring anything.
In some towns and cities, some councils are going to be introducing CCTV that's going to monitor outside schools, that's going to record your registration numbers and things like that. And if you park where you're not supposed to park, then you will get a fine. Good.
Illegally, if it's illegal parking.
Illegal. And you shouldn't park near schools because it is dangerous, because it makes it a nightmare for residents who live there. It's awful. This is cheaper, apparently. What lots of schools do is they get those mobile trucks with the cameras there to monitor people already. You didn't even know that, did you?
Uh-oh, you're getting specific.
So they do that already. This is a cheaper version of doing it. The actor Tom Conti, he calls it. He calls it Stasi-style surveillance. Oh, for goodness sakes, Mr. Conti, get over yourself.
It's like exaggeration, isn't it?
Yeah, but also if they can't... See, the thing is, I used to cycle to work when I lived in Pinner. I'd cycle to Harrow, and there's one road in Pinner where there's a sort of small kind of private school, and I would cycle down there because it was the quickest way to go. I had to stop going down that road because I have never nearly died so many times in the space of a week, because it would be mums coming to drop off their kids, swinging round, doing U-turns. I mean, literally, I'd be exhausted when I got to work because of the adrenaline from getting there, from all the near misses. Yeah.
Park half a mile away, make your kids walk. This is why we've got fat kids.
Yeah, but on a deadline. You've got to get them to school on time.
Early, get up 20 minutes earlier.
It always puzzled me to see these cars parked outside school. They're actually making their own children less safe by encouraging other people to park outside the front gates. Gillian just keeping stum all the way through this particular night.
I need to get up earlier. That's all we resolved.
Listen, I know it's not as easy as that. It's hard work when you're a parent and you've got all kinds of things to do. But you've had the kids, put the work in.
Then it's wrong. No, I'm not suggesting that's right in any way, shape or form. Please do not tweet me on that. Let's move on to I'm going to have a look at this labour tax and rebates that Ed Miliband's suggesting. This is in the Independent, Julie. You have a look at this.
Yes, if I can find it through
essentially a good idea, do we think?
Yes, because of course, it's one of these really tricky things. I mean, I appreciate, especially for like small businesses and things like that, it's very difficult to kind of, pay the living wage, but anything that's going to sort of incentivise business to start doing it and, start doing it properly and actually paying people. One of the statistics here, actually, that I found quite shocking was 22% of UK workers earn less than the living wage. I mean, that's just a really shocking state of affairs, especially even for young people as well. You have to do a lot of like internships and things like that. We're kind of earning less and less money. And if you have a job, you're not going to leave the job because you can't find another job. So you're stuck in this sort of like constant cycle of not getting anywhere. Obviously, it's not going to, the amount of money he's offering is not going to cover the difference. But anything that's going to kind of push that forward, or even just kind of raise awareness that this is like a big problem.
Well, it's an incentive, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a cracking idea, and I think it is criminal that so many people earn less than the living wage and 0-hour contracts and all these things that kind of exploit workers.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, when I heard this on the radio this morning, I thought, this is a great idea. Well done, Ed Miliband, you're doing something. And then when I saw it in the papers, I felt slightly differently, because the pictures of him are like him with, lots of different ethnic backgrounds, sat in a working men's cafe. It's just ticking all the boxes. I'm in a working men's cafe. Hey, I'm Ed Miliband. I go into cafes and have full Englishes all the time. What are you talking about? I just thought, it's a really good idea.
Where would you like to see him photographed instead?
Just where he normally. Let's see him photographed. I don't know, somewhere normal. It's obviously his PR people have gone.
They've just picked a few people.
His PR people have gone, right, Ed. What we're going to do is we're going to get you lots of different background people in there, and we're going to get in a working men's cafe, have a full English. I think it's a little bit cynical, really.
Yeah. Might have been a genuine photo.
It might have been. They might have just. The cameraman may have just walked past.
You
never know.
Now, tell us, Ian, why Michelle Pfeiffer doesn't eat food.
Well,
and stays managed to stay alive.
I am excited by this one. She does eat food now. She does eat food.
Oh, now?
Michelle Pfeiffer, the day I realised I was part of a cult.
What was the clue?
Well, the actress had disclosed that she was once part of a cult. She realised it because she met this gentleman who said, I think you may be part of a cult. The cult is an organisation called Breatharians, who believe you don't need food and water to survive. You get all of the vitamins and energy you need from the sun.
Oh.
I would have realised that I was part of a cult when they said, oh, you don't have to eat or drink anymore.
But how do you sell that as a plausible thing?
Well,
like, I don't understand.
How do they survive to pass on the message?
Well, this is it. I'm a big fan of Breatharians. I've been following them for a while. Not following them, but I've been interested in them. When one of the high-up kind of people in it came out and said, this is what I do, I don't need food or water. So these scientists said, OK, well, let's put you in a house for a month without food or water. She went, yeah, fine, not a problem, I'm in. 2 days later, she comes out going, I can't do it, I can't do it. It doesn't work. She came out really poorly. I think it's... I like Michelle Pfeiffer. It's nice to see her back. I've kind of missed people like Pfeiffer on the scene, but Breatharianism, guess what? It's a load of old tosh.
It doesn't work.
You
need to eat food. Ian and Julia for the minute. Thanks very much. We're going to take a break, and more papers coming up, including what one man did to survive in the wilderness. Yeah, we've given it away slightly. Continuing to take us through the papers, gaming presenter Julia Hardy and radio host Iain Lee. And we're going to have a look at this story you've picked out in the Express, Julia.
Yeah, it's
quite
actually
sad, really.
It's really sad, and they really should have chosen a better picture of the chap, because he looks quite happy about it, and it's actually quite a sad story. Basically, he was an adventurer in Canada. Basically, a bear came and attacked his camp. His dog saw the bear off very heroically, but then basically he was kind of lone and lost and desperate, and ended up having to eat the dog that had saved him. I mean, because that photo, they need to have one of him looking a bit sadder, because that's horrid.
He's enjoyed his meal there, look. He's loved that. A bit of Fido.
No,
Fido burgers.
That's so tragic. I mean, it's... I think
he was out there for 3 months, I think, this guy. He booked himself on a 2-month trip, so no one missed him, even though he got into trouble quite early on in the adventure.
Yeah.
So no one missed him for the first 2 months because he's out doing what he's planning to do. But he was lost for 3 months, and I think they found him kind of walking through the snow barefoot a few days away from death. So he's had a rough old ride, bless him, but not quite as rough as the dog.
It's also quite... Because if this had happened to me, I really wouldn't want there to be a story in the paper about it, because I'd feel awful about it. But, you know, what can you do? It's survival at the end of the day.
No, this is going to make a cracking film. It's like that fellow who got stuck on a cliff and had to chop his arm off.
Oh, yeah, 120
Yeah, which was this is going to make a cracking film.
It's not quite as heartwarming, though, to be honest with you.
But no. It's not, is it?
And there was that film years ago of the plane crash. They
Alive.
had to, yes.
Alive.
Oh, yes. They were Portuguese or Brazilian or South American, and the football team. That's an incredible story.
Even worse. So, but yeah, as you say, needs must, and it's a matter of survival there.
I could eat my cat if I was stranded for 2 months.
Eat your cat.
You're welcome. Let's come round.
What you say?
Anyone?
The Twitter.
Who cares about those losers?
Oh, you've done it now. Let's move on.
That's it.
Let's move on. And this is your story, Ian. This is in the Express. And I can't believe this. You think Bob Dylan's rubbish?
Bob Dylan, there is a huge Bob Dylan box set coming out. 40 albums, I think, of Bob Dylan songs are going to be going to be released in this box set. This journalist, Patrick Humphreys, has counted down his 41 favourite Bob Dylan songs at number 17, Maggie's Farm, number 13, Boots of Spanish Leather, number 9, A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. There are not 41 good Bob Dylan songs. There are 2. He is rubbish. He cannot sing. His poetry is awful. He can't play guitar. His harmonica is awful. He is absolutely... He has got by on luck and myth. That is all. Lay, Lady, Lay. And there's a song about a window in a chemist's. And I can't remember the name. A poster in the window of a chemist. That is it. The rest of it is awful. Blowing in the wind. It's like the 12-year-old has written it. Isn't it?
All through his nose.
It's called Beautiful Simplicity.
It's called a man who cannot sing and cannot write, but someone bought into it early on. He has become a myth. And he has got away with luck.
In your humble opinion, Ian, thank you very much for it.
You're very welcome.
Even though others might differ, we're going to take a look at the sport now. Charlie's standing by. With us this morning to review them, we have gaming presenter Julia Hardy and radio host Iain Lee.
Morning.
Welcome to you again. We're going to start off with the Independent. I think this is your story, is it, Julia? Just really looking at what lessons have been learnt since the various cases that we've had of child abuse, particularly looking at Baby P and Victoria Colombier.
That's right, yeah. It's looking into Haringey Children's Services again. And, obviously talking about Baby P and Victoria Colombier as well. And apparently there's another instance where there's another child where they've had to do a serious case review again. It's strange, actually, because I used to work many years ago for the Harrow Children with Disabilities team, and it was a really interesting thing to kind of see the other side of actually working in this environment. And it was a couple of years after the Victoria Colombier inquiry. And what basically happened was... After all this kind of thing happened, because there's such a blame culture and there is all this kind of like, witch hunt that will go on after cases that are as big as this. A lot of my social workers who were there, you're dealing with someone like the most, vulnerable members of the community, children with disabilities, were spending such a little amount of time actually out in the community, with these children, which is where they need to be really doing good work, and spending so much time just filling in kind of check forms to make sure, that there wasn't going to be any kind of like... any kind of like witch hunt, if anything like that, was to happen. Instead of actually just spending time in the community doing their jobs, they're basically just having to cover themselves. And this comes down from managers, because managers know that if anything goes wrong, it's going to be their job that goes, rather than actually spending time doing good work and helping these kids. So, I mean, obviously, you should be raising awareness of these situations when this stuff happens, but the fact that there's all this scaremongering and tactics and witch hunts and people being ousted from their jobs without actually having like a proper kind of
But when you do look at the facts of the cases, they're horrendous details that were missed time and time again, and you do wonder, even despite mountains of paperwork, how can you miss a child that's been physically battered? Yeah,
I mean, but then also it's not just sort of like the social care team that would have to, obviously, especially with Baby P, it was also, there was the medical professionals who missed things as well. I mean, it was just categorically, it was overlooked by a lot of different departments. Obviously, there is a degree of blame that should be there as well. But when you see some of the caseloads of some of these social workers and the fact that, maybe they're only spending like maybe a couple of hours outside of the office a week sometimes, because they have to literally just go through all the paperwork and make sure everything's covered and their backs are covered, just in case anything comes back on them. That's crazy. Just crazy.
The whole system is flawed, though, not just the social workers. They seem to get in the bad press. The fact that Baby P, Tracy Connolly, was jailed for a minimum of 5 years and is out now. That's another flaw in the system. She shouldn't be out now. Of course she shouldn't at all. And social workers get a bad press. I genuinely believe, because I've had some dealings with social workers in regards to my mum, I genuinely believe most of them are there for the right reasons, and they are bound by the system in which they work in. So I think it's it's such a tough one, isn't it? But I do think these things can be a little bit unfair on the social workers.
I think you're right. It isn't just social workers, because as we know in the various cases, doctors missed clues, several visits to GPs as well. So it isn't just social workers. You're right. Let's move on to this story that we've been covering this morning. This is in the Mail, and Iain, you've had a look at this, and this is the selling of what the Mail's describing as Holocaust souvenirs on eBay.
I've been watching your footage on this. It's incredible. So these are clothes and badges and memorabilia that belong to people who died or are in the death camps in you know, Nazi Germany and Poland and things like that. And I just find it incredible. One of your emails there saying, well, World War II memorabilia has been sold for a long time. What's the difference? Well, the difference is this is worn by people who were probably slaughtered in the most inhumane of circumstances. Yes, there is a bizarre, strange cult for people buying Nazi memorabilia and British soldier memorabilia. I don't quite get it, but I can see how someone would like the collecting aspect of that. But to buy something for thousands of pounds that has been worn by someone who has been treated inhumanely, who has been slaughtered, I just can't see why anybody...
I mean, it's a piece of social history, though.
But calling it memorabilia makes it sound like something, you know, you get, let's say, a signed record of it, or memorabilia, because you're a fan. Souvenirs, that language.
It is social history. Why would you want to keep that in your own private collection? That kind of stuff should be on display if it's going to be on display.
So you're objecting it to being sold to individuals rather than to museums, say, would have a historical context?
It's a tough one. I think if it's going to be on display, then it needs to be on display. If it's going to be owned, it should be on display in museums so that we can learn from it, and it humanises the numbers and the horror that we've heard about. It shouldn't be sold on eBay. eBay is a place you go and buy Beatles records, you go and buy used jackets. You know, it's completely inappropriate.
But just to say that eBay have apologised. There is an investigation going on, and interestingly, the seller of the items has said that he was doing it to document them and fund history book projects.
You shouldn't be making. I don't think you should be making money out of these things. I think that's the thing, that an individual should not be making profit out of something so horrific. They should have the good grace to donate that somewhere. I think.
No, do let us know what you think on that. That's a real talking point this morning. Let's have a look at the Sun now, Julia. A story that you've picked out about a children's television presenter.
Yeah, it's a sad story about this CBeebies presenter who got addicted to cocaine. Sarah Jane Honeywell, and it's sort of talking about her story and how you know, she worried she was going to sort of lose her job and things like that. And there always seems to be, like, quite often, every so often there seems to be these children TV presenters. There's lots of different scandals where they come out. So the only thing I can kind of relate to this slightly in my own life, obviously I have never been a cocaine addict or anything like that, but I used to do charity fundraising in the street where you basically had to kind of stop people and get them to sign up, you know, for £3 a month or whatever. And you basically...
you were a chugger.
I was a chugger.
Right off you.
I was a chugger. But you had to sort of grin and smile all day. I remember the first week I came back, my cheeks ached from smiling, and I sat at home feeling miserable, because sometimes when you have to be that upbeat and that perky and that happy all day, actually it ends up making the rest of the time you're not working feel awful, because you're kind of like using all your serotonin, but for your job. So when you come back, you end up feeling terrible. So you can understand why something maybe like a drug addiction could happen, because you're supposed to be this bright and energetic person.
But I mean, it's no excuse. I mean, many people have to put on a public face in their line of work.
I've always wondered what cocaine looks like, and luckily they've put a picture of it in the corner there.
Just so you know.
But I've worked with Sarah Jane a little bit. I know her very well, and it's interesting to hear this. I think it's very brave of her to come out and say this, because addiction is a disease, and it affects so many people, rich, poor. You know, so many people can be affected by this. It is treatable. You know, there are things you can do, and she talks about going to Narcotics Anonymous and getting help from there, and that has helped her, and she's clean and sober now, which is fantastic. And I think it's very brave that she's come out.
It is brave. It is a brave thing to do. Iain and Julia, thank you. Stay with us. We are going to take a break, and coming up when we come back, should celebrities charge for their autograph? Welcome back. We're still looking through the papers with gaming presenter Julia Hardy and radio host Iain Lee. And Julia, you're going to take us into the next story, which is in The Observer. Beauty treatments, all these beauty fads.
If you actually read this, there's a lot of really, as a man, some quite horrendous stories.
I think I've just found the bit that you're talking about.
You can basically bath with these eels, and there was a story about a man who felt a sharp pain, and one of them went up his
where it shouldn't have.
Bits. little bit bizarre.
I cross our legs and...
continue. But
is it that they're not regulated? Is that the problem?
Well, this is it, exactly. You might have seen, like, in London, they started having a lot of these kind of fish pedicure things as well, like that, and it's completely unrelated. But I'm not really super surprised, because a lot of beauty products and treatments, in my mind, are completely unsubstantiated. You can pretty much get any old jar of cold cream, put some lavender in it, slap a sticker on it, and it seems that you can just go out and sell it and say that it does wonderful things.
But the fish nibbling at your toes, that's been done for...
Why was the man having a bath with an eel? I
think it exfoliates the skins. They bite off dead skin.
Why the only person might bite off a bit more than they can chew.
Exactly. Do it with piranhas. I mean, you could lose weight at the same time.
Am I the only person who thinks this is a little bit cruel on the fish?
On the fish.
And the creatures involved in this?
Absolutely. They don't want old bits of verruca to eat.
Very, very quickly, we must just get on to our last story. This is in the Mail, and really just asking if some of the dancers on Strictly Come Dancing are a bit too big for their tap shoes. What are they doing?
Literally one of the shows I've never seen in my life, but I would love to get Anton de Beek, real name Anthony Beek. Would like to get his autograph.
It'll cost you.
It's going to cost me £45 for Anthony Beek's autograph. That's ridiculous. I don't mind. Listen, these celebrities are charging for autographs. If they can get away with it, good luck to them.
When you put it like that, Anthony Beek for 45 quid, I don't think it's worth it. But
no.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Next round. People definitely wanting to talk about it.
Sorry to interject. Can people not see the difference between military paraphernalia and clothes that have been worn by someone who's died in a prisoner of war camp? There's obviously a huge difference between that, and I think that's quite narrow-minded of that person. Also, the Imperial War Museum is there to educate and remind us of the horrors of war and the bravery of some people. It's completely different from buying something like that on eBay. Sorry, little rant.
Agree. Hi. Thank you very much for that, Ian.
Sorry.
Hello.
Quite angry there.
Ian's already announced his appearance here. Ian's here with us, as is Julia, to take us through the papers, the final look at the morning. And we're starting off with this story in the Daily Star, that the LA airport shooter was suicidal. He had apparently sent texts to his sibling.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of like strange story in that, I mean, he went specifically to a place where there is the most amount of security and people armed. He clearly was suicidal, otherwise you wouldn't have gone there. Like, straight to an airport where everyone's armed. As soon as you know you're going to be taken down straight away. Yeah, it's sort of a kind of strange little story, really, in that regard, because otherwise, yeah, you go somewhere else, right? You wouldn't go straight to the airport. Yeah. And
there was the suggestion that perhaps he might have had a grudge against the security officers. Has that come out in the piece?
Yeah, no, well, yeah, that's it as well. It's just bonkers. There's actually a thing in the papers the other week I was reading, which was in America, I think it was, they found 39 handguns in bags, 32 of which were loaded. Last year.
Airports, was it?
Yeah, airports. Wow. It's just, I mean, I still find it absolutely fascinating, you know, being English and, you know, with sort of like American, you know, TV and movies and video games, you know, you're used to kind of seeing weaponry and stuff like that, and it's just so far removed from kind of how we can understand these things.
No, it's a completely different cultural context, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't really understand it at all. Definitely.
Let's have a look at the Times now. Ian, this is your story, and one about, a story being suppressed about food banks. I thought the story was quite well out there, actually.
Well, I can't believe that, you know, in 2013 we're doing stories about food banks, that we need to have food banks. This is a report highlighting the number of people who cannot afford to eat properly is being suppressed. The report has been out there, but there are claims that the coalition has kind of been doing their best to play it down. It's not such a big deal, and it's on my phoning show, I'm getting so many stories. I had a guy phoning this week who cannot afford to buy food because he needs to heat his house. He can't afford to buy food, and he hadn't eaten for a couple of days.
Gosh.
And there are more and more people becoming dependent on food banks. I just think it is incredible that it's 2013. This is Britain, and there are families who are having to go to special places to get a box full of, you know, beans and tins of sweet corn and stuff like that. It just seems incredible to me. I mean, we're talking last week about Prince Charles being upset because he's going to become the king, and these energy companies, the big pay deals that the bosses are getting. The divide just seems to be getting bigger. I'm sounding like some kind of crazy socialist, but the divide is getting bigger and bigger between, you know, those who have got millionaires and those who have got nothing. Literally
what
nothing.
about those who are critical and saying saying that perhaps people are coming to rely on them now because they're there, they're using them rather than...
You can't rely on them, because I think for the majority of food banks, if I've got this correct, you have to be referred there by the council, and you can only get you can only have a certain number of visits. I think it may be 4 visits. I might have got that wrong. But you're limited to the number of visits you can have. It's a short-term answer. And people are dependent on these handouts because they can't afford to feed themselves or feed their kids. People in this country can't feed their kids. And there will be, you know, there will be some people saying, well, you know, these people have got iPhones and iPads, stuff like that. Some of them have. But there are a significant number of people who are living in real poverty.
Well, they're always genuine cases, aren't they?
Genuine cases who can't feed themselves.
But then this goes back to the living wage thing all over again, doesn't it, surely? It links to that. So, you know, obviously that's kind of hopefully going to move in the right direction and actually get people like a better wage, but, yeah.
Food banks in 2012 helped 126,000 children.
That's an awful lot. That's
so
an incredible stat, isn't it? Let's move on to the Mirror, and this is your story, Julia. Now, I don't agree with this analysis, obviously.
No, no. This is Terry Wogan, basically saying that, yes, you know, women use their looks to get jobs in television, so they shouldn't be moaning on about the fact when they get replaced for better-looking ones a bit later on, really. It's ridiculous. I mean, you know, Gillian, yourself, obviously, you must be aware of the pressures of what it's like to be like a woman on screen. You know, you have to, you know, be a certain standard. You can't just turn up with bedhead. You know, you've got to look.
It has been known before I get into makeup.
Sure, but even in the sense of, if you go for an audition or for a job, you're expected to look a certain way or to be a certain standard.
Well, you're also expected to have a certain amount of knowledge. I mean, that's something that we're skimming over completely here. It's not just about how you look. It is a visual medium, television, obviously, but you do have to have something between your ears, I think.
I mean, of course.
Well, I would...
What do you mean, well?
I'm not saying ladies, but I don't... I think for your job, yes, that you need a basis of knowledge and being able to question things. But TV presenting itself... It's a piece of cake. TV presenting is the easiest job in the world.
We make it look difficult sometimes.
To ruin the magic at home, when TV presenters are talking to you, they are reading the words off of the screen.
Hush.
You just need to stand...
Don't ruin the...
listen, I don't care. You need to stand there and read and ask inane questions to pop stars. That's what the majority of presenting is. Your jobs are slightly different because it comes from a journalistic background. But TV presenting is a piece of cake. Anyone can do it.
But you see, this is the thing. They're only having to conform because the people who are choosing them and getting them the jobs are deciding how it should be. They're not, you know, necessarily doing it because they want to do it or they have to do it to be given a chance.
It's not just about men and women. I mean, the men also have to look presentable to be on television.
But you can have wrinkles as a man.
Well, they can age. I think they're allowed to age more
on
television. That's the big difference, I think. Neil staying silent. As well you might.
No. Do you know what? I'll say this, actually. I've got a huge amount of grey hair coming in, and I cannot wait for it to go completely grey.
But you're not going to do it.
As a man, you can.
That was the point I was going to make. That for women, you just wouldn't see it. Certainly, it's very rare to see a woman on TV with her natural hair colour.
No, absolutely. Therein lies the difference.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at whose story is next. This is the Times.
This is the Times News Review, the front page. This is incredible. OK, and this is it's basically it's an extract from a book, and it's got me hooked. I'm going to go and order this today. The Mumbai siege, the terrorism siege. This is a book that is a collection of stories of people who were involved in that siege. And the story that this has gone for is this young couple here, Kathy Scott Clark and Adrian Levy. They were in the hotel at the time it happened, and they're in there. He's coming out of the bathroom, and he says, "Can you hear fireworks?" It's like, no. Looks out the window, there's no fireworks. Then they hear the fireworks are inside the hotel. They creep out, they can smell... They look over the edge and they see people running around with guns. And it is their incredible story. And I've got shivers down my spine reading it. It's amazing. I urge everyone to read this. Their incredible story of them in their hotel room going, what do we do? He's texting his dad saying, look, I'm watching it on the news, just stay in your room, don't move. A few hours later, they get a text from his dad saying, get out of the hotel now. It's on fire. Get out. They're 60 feet up.
Amazing.
They make a rope out of sheets and blankets.
Oh, my goodness.
He goes out the window. He falls 60 feet.
Amazing story to tell. That promises to be a fantastic read.
Really
Ian and Julia, stay with us. We are going to take a break. And when we come back, why some people think Doctor Who could never be a woman.
Oh, look at that dirty look.
Welcome back, still with us, reviewing the papers, Ian and Julia, and we're going to have a look at the Star, the Daily Star now, Star on Sunday, actually.
Oh, yes.
This story, how a tracking app led to an interesting discovery.
Oh, there's so many ways you can be caught out as a cheater. Yes, this is a gardener suspicious girlfriend basically used a Samsung app to track him down and find out that he'd been playing away a little bit because he saw that his van was parked outside of a former girlfriend's house. I'm guessing for long enough period of time to arouse suspicion. So yeah, I love kind of reading stories like this. She actually seems quite okay about it. I don't want to make light of the fact that she's been cheated on by any stretch of imagination. She's got rid of him now and it's all fine. But yeah, there's a lot of ways you can be caught out now with all these different kind of apps and stuff like this. So yes, do cheaters beware. It's quite easy to be tracked down because you can do this thing which is like Find My Friends, where you can opt in and you can see sort of what your friends are doing. But I don't really like that.
It's got time for that though.
I know, but people like knowing where people. It's very strange, yeah. But then like I had friends who were like, we were at an airport, we're going away for something, and then we got a message from him saying, "Oh, so where are you going then?" He hadn't said anything online or like on Facebook or Twitter, but because he was joined into this Find My Friends app.
No, I don't like the idea of that.
Let's not give our bosses any ideas.
Yeah.
No, I hope they're not watching. Don't like the idea of that at all. Just to say that Dwayne says that he's been a fool twice over. First for cheating on Louise, and second for not realising that the bleep app was still on the phone.
That's the thing he regrets the most, that he left that app on there.
Priorities, Dwayne, priorities, Dwayne. Let's have a look at our final story. This is in the Mail.
Yeah.
And
good journalism from the Mail.
Why? Of course. Why? Oh, why? Should the doctor never be a woman?
Because the doctor is a man, OK?
At the moment?
Yeah, because he is a man. He is a man. Peter Davison, who I would say was the fourth best Doctor Who, has come out and said you can never have a female Time Lord. Every time the Doctor regenerates, he says, oh, maybe we could get a woman. Maybe we could get Helen Mirren. Maybe we could get Dame Judi Dench. You can't, because he is a man. Listen, women, you can now be doctors in real life. Enjoy that. You know, be a time lady. You ain't going to be Doctor Who, all right? It's never going to happen.
But the Doctor...
It changes every regenerative system. Why can't it be a woman?
Because he regenerates into a man. He doesn't change
so he could,
gender.
You know, push it back.
I'm going to have to wrap you up here, but I just must read this tweet from PK. He said, how would a woman park the TARDIS? It's a bit big. Hashtag little risky, I'm not a chauvinist, honest.
Hashtag
really,
1976.
PK? Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in this morning. Let's have a look now at what's happening with the sport. Charlie.